Okay. I'm much neater than that. Come on, come on. Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Yeah, there you go. That's good. That's good. Okay, so here we are. Am I right before lunch?
Yes.
Good. Because you're going to have lunch in your... No, I'm just kidding. No. It'll be good. Well, I'm very excited that we're going to be here because this is a talk I've given many times before. It has evolved many times over, but here's the part that you need to know. It's going to involve you. All of you. Okay? You with me?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, here we go. So real quick, let's give a little bit of primer for those of you who are not familiar with this guy here, William Shakespeare. Okay, so he was born in April in the 1500s, 1564 in England, Stratford upon Avon. At the age of 19, he got married to a woman that they later had 3 kids. Older and 2 twins, Hamnet. You're probably familiar with Hamlet. Hamnet and Judith. But here's the thing. Shortly after that, there's this gap. We don't know what happened. In fact, there's a lot of theories, a whole lot of theories, and this is some of the reasons why people believe that potentially he was never actually real. Or at least this is not actually Shakespeare, the person that wrote all of these Old English texts. But here's what did happen when he got back. When he got back, or this persona got back, whatever that means, this person got back and they started to present a bunch of plays. Now here's the thing. For the last 400 plus years, these plays have been performed thousands upon thousands upon thousands of times. Have you, raise your hand if you've ever seen a play by Shakespeare. Wonderful. Out of curiosity, raise your other hand if you've ever done a play by Shakespeare. Okay, excellent. I really want to know what this means. Like,
it was like a class thing. It was like a participation, but we all had to do parts.
Participation. Yeah. Keep that in mind. Okay, so William Shakespeare ultimately produced 39 different plays, full-length plays. There's 154 sonnets, and if you don't know, a sonnet is a 14-line poem, okay, that follows what I'll talk about in a little bit called iambic pentameter. But here's a couple of things that you may not know. First is, he created a whole lot of words that we often will use today. This is just a handful of them. In fact, there's about 1,700. Now, some of those words were used, but he's the one that popularized most of them. And on top of that, there were other things that he created, like certain phrases. Ever heard this one? How about this one? These are all coming directly from William Shakespeare. Here's another one from Romeo and Juliet. Vanish into thin air. Okay. And I've seen better days. Okay, so these are all things that have come directly out of William Shakespeare's texts. But here's the interesting part, is part of what made his plays timeless was that the work he did was not just combine a bunch of words together, but he would redefine the meaning of those things. Raise your hand if you read the description for what this talk is about. Okay, for the rest of you, let me tell you what it says. That of the 800,000 words he put together, over the course of the hundreds and hundreds of years we have done plays, where they've been staged in different time periods, they've been written and rewritten a whole lot of different times. Did you know that in that text there is almost 0 stage direction, music to the songs? It says almost nothing about how you're supposed to do the play. So the question is this: what did he do that gave him the ability to put 1,700 different words into a play, never defining them, yet still making sure that everybody understood what they meant? Raise your hand if you use documentation at work. Okay, this is what we're talking about. All right, so before we go, anyone want to volunteer for something? Raise your hand if you don't want to volunteer for something so I know who you are. Oh, come on. Raise your hand if you don't want to volunteer for something. Okay, then I'm guessing that all of you are willing to, yes? Okay, good. That's good. So here's what I want to do. I need to have 5 volunteers. I already have 1 over here to my right, but I need 4 more. Okay, 4 more. Come on, don't be shy. Don't worry, it's gonna be a short period of time. You're only gonna look like an idiot for a really short period of time. Rich, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. Good. Okay, so if I can have the 4 of you come down here. These are the half-stack players. As an audience member, we need to learn how to give a good applause. So applause our players. Okay, good. Okay, good. Okay, players, please join me here on the stage. Now, a couple of things that you may... raise your hand if you've ever been to a play before. This would be nothing like that. Okay, come on over. Get over here, right here in the middle, because you're our players. Okay, so here's how this works. These folks are going to do the opening scene from Romeo and Juliet. Don't worry, there's no kissing. But this is between the Montagues and the Capulets. This is the scene, the one, the only, in which we collide in the beginning. We learn about the differences between these households. 2 households, both alike in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. Yes? But here's what we got to do. First, we have to hand out our parts. Okay. Oh, I forgot to mention, as audience members, here are the rules. Now, in the days of Old English and Shakespeare, the audience, the groundlings, were those that were along the very bottom. Okay? They were extremely responsive. Show me what extremely responsive sounds like. That's what extremely responsive sounds like? Okay, move this out of the way. Move this out of the way. Stand up and show me what extremely responsive sounds like. Hey. There we go. Now we're extremely responsive. Good job. Okay, so you must be extremely responsive. Here's the other thing that happened is, if you did not know this, the theaters of the day were these big kind of oval structures, multi-tiered, and at the bottom you'd have the groundlings. And along the outsides, you'd have these different seating areas where all the royalty and fancy people would be. But the thing that did not exist was there was no microphones. So everybody here had to project. Okay, so to my players, do not forget that you're speaking to the back of the house where all the famous people are. 2 famous people up there, okay? Back of the house where the 2 famous people are, okay?
Hello.
This is right. Hello, famous people. All right, but to the rest of us, we've paid a penny. Right? We've paid a penny to see this production of the half-stack players. So now what we have to do is we have to distribute our parts. Now, another thing you may not know is that the parts, they ain't no photocopiers, friends. So here's what they would do. They would write the parts 1 sheet at a time. I'm not going to be this rude to you guys, cruel to you all. But you would only have your lines on your piece of paper, and they were all handwritten. So you didn't necessarily know what the other person's lines might be. So it was really essential that as they had written down the text, that there was enough indication of what was to happen next so that your actors could react to one another, because they didn't actually and always know what the next line was going to sound like. Make sense? All right, so here we go. First things first, we're going to need a Gregory. Who wants to be a Gregory? Rich wants to be a Gregory. Okay, read those over while I buy you some time. I'm going to need a Samson, and I need a boisterous Samson. Boisterous Samson. Who wants to be a boisterous Samson? Here we go. Matt, you get to be a boisterous Samson. Abraham, here you go. All right. You get to be my short. See, you got lucky. You only have to worry about those 2 lines right there. Okay. Here's my Benvolio, and of course, my boisterous Tybalt to end it out. Yes. You only have the lines at the end of there. So a couple of things you're going to listen for inside this scene that I'd love you to pay attention to. First is, there is already definitions that are happening in the very beginning. So I'm going to tell you right now a couple to listen to. Draw my sword, okay? Or my naked weapon is out. What they're referring to is a sword, okay? So no nudity. There's a code of conduct here, people. Yes. Okay, so that is what the naked weapon is that is a sword, all right? I bite my thumb at you is another way of saying, fuck you. Okay, I bite my thumb at thee, sir, is what that actually means. You with me? Okay, so don't forget, you're talking to our patrons at the top, yes? All right? You're this so yay! Yay! Okay, you with me? All right. Oh, wait a second.
We have to start and end.
Yeah. So, okay, so, yeah. No, it's okay. We'll be here unless you want to come in.
Oh, I want to come.
Yeah, yeah. You're going to come in. Okay, that's good. Okay. All right, but okay, so scooch on over, scooch on over, scooch on over. Yeah, you're gonna go. Okay, scooch on over. Okay, here we are. Okay, all right. Okay, here. Wait. Oh, where's my Gregory and Samson? Gregory and Samson. Okay, you're gonna start us out. But there's some. Wait. There's something missing. I know what it is. I know what it is. Props. Okay. So first things first. There's your hat. Okay. Definitely. We're gonna definitely need you to wear that. That's good. Okay. That's good. That's good. Okay, and we're gonna need. Here. You get to have yourself a. I thought I got the largest one I could get, but that's okay. Okay. All right. That's good. That's good. Everyone needs a beard. So we're gonna need you to have this beard if you can. Oh, here you go. You can put your beard on. Okay. If you're allergic to this, tell me now or forever hold your peace. Okay. You need a beard too. Okay. And you're gonna need a beard too. Okay. Let's see here. And I got one more beard. Got one more beard. Who wants the beard? Oh yeah. One more beard. Okay. Good. Okay. Good. We're so ready. We're so ready. And of course, the last thing we need is our naked weapons. Yes? You got your naked weapon. That's good. Okay, you get a naked weapon. Okay, you get a naked weapon. You get a naked weapon.
Does everyone get a naked weapon?
Everyone gets a naked weapon. You get 2 naked weapons. Okay. All right. Is it better? Okay, so now our play is about to begin. So I need to hear from our groundlings. Our play is here. Let me open up the scene. Welcome to the HalfStack players. I am your fair orator that would like to bring you into this play of Romeo and Juliet. It's a tragedy of sorts, of star-crossed lovers. But today, we shall witness a snippet, friends, a snippet. Groundlings, can I hear from you? Groundlings. And with that, the scene begins.
This will thou art not fish. If he huts, thou hadst been poor George. Draw thy tool. Here comes two of the house of the
Montagues. My naked weapon is out. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, well, speak your naked weapon into there.
My naked weapon is out. Quarrel, I will back thee.
How? Turn thy back and run.
Fear me not.
No may I fear thee.
Let us take the law to our sides. Let them begin.
I will frown as I pass by and let them take it as they list.
Nay, as they dare, I will bite my thumb at them, which is a disgrace to them if they bear it.
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?
I do. I bite my thumb at thee, sir.
Do you bite your thumb at us, sir?
No, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir.
Do you quarrel, sir?
Quarrel, sir? No, sir.
If you do, sir, I am for you. I serve as a good man as you.
No, better.
Well, sir.
Say better. Here comes one of my master's kinsmen.
Yes, better, sir.
You lie.
Draw if you be men, Gregory. Remember thy swashing blow.
They fight.
Fighting to the death, fighting to the death. Oh, it's vicious. It's vicious.
Oh, there's something different. Part fools, put up your swords so you know not what you do.
I think it's me. Oh.
What? Art thou drawn among these heartless hinds? Turn thee, Benevolio, look upon thy death. Get to your line while you're done.
Oh, I do, but keep the peace. Put up that sword or manage it to part these men with me.
What, drawn and talk of peace? I hate the word, as I hate hell. All Montagues and thee. Have at thee, coward.
And they fight. They fight. All right, let us hear it from the players. Of course, every good scene must end with a don't take it off yet. It must end with a bow. And on a count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Very good. Hear them up. Hear them up. Very, very good. Okay, you can leave your naked weapons here. You can leave your accoutrement there, all the other things. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed it. Did you enjoy the play? How would you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10? Exactly, at least a 15. I think so too. All right, so this is the script they were looking at, and I want to point out just a couple of quick things. So first is, if you notice, again, my naked weapon is out, is indicating what is happening. You can reinterpret that as the sword. The only stage direction that was ever written in there, and most of this was added after the fact, are the parts that were highlighted. So enter Abraham and Balthazar, who never says a word. They fight, enter Benvolio. The parts that are written into the text are extremely limited. As an example, they fight is probably the part that was written in. But it doesn't say anything about the fight. It doesn't say how any of the characters react. All the rest is actually embedded into the text. So here's the thing that I want to talk about. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of iambic pentameter. Stellar. So for those of you who aren't familiar, iambic pentameter is also known as metered verse. Now here's the thing that if you've ever studied Shakespeare, whether it was in school or otherwise, you might have heard about this. And for the most part, I would say it's fair to say that a lot of people, when they look at this, they're like, bore me to death. As an actor, which is what I started out as, I was the same way in my English class until I got into theater and learned the types of things that iambic pentameter starts to tell us. And it's fully baked into the text. Now, iambic pentameter is effectively built off of this model of 5 iambs, ba-bum, 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 ba-bum. And it's meant to simulate English speaking, right? So the English speaking pattern. So when I gave this talk in Taiwan, it did not translate over well, literally, because the English language is what this is built on. But this rhythmic pattern, ba-boom, 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 is how you can literally read the lines. So I will show you an example. 'Tis well thou art not fish, if thou hast been poor John, draw thy tool, here comes two of the house of Montagues. Now here's how it's actually supposed to be said if you say it in iambic pentameter. 'Tis well thou art not fish, if thou hast been poor John, draw thy tool, here comes. Now that's where as actors we start. Because then what happens, and here's another example of that real quick, is when I do count the clock that tells the time. Now, in a standard 5 iamb segment, okay, da-dun, 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 it is effectively illustrating to us as actors, but even to the audience, because they start to hear the pattern and don't realize it, that everything else is fine. Now, anyone ever heard of Hamlet's speech, to be or not to be? Now let me tell you why it's actually so important. Because what will happen is Shakespeare did this. He actually added an 11th beat at the end. To be or not to be, that's the part he knows. That is the question. So what this tells us as actors, especially when we analyze this, is that the intention here is a state of emotional disarray. It doesn't specifically say that. You can sort of draw the conclusion by reading the text over and over again. But embedded in the line is literally a way to look at it and say it that informs a part of what the intention of it is supposed to be. And as a result of that, we start to find that these hiccups in the pattern are things that are supposed to be informative. Now, this would be entirely irrelevant if Shakespeare was not consistent. Okay? And by consistent, I don't mean always followed it or didn't. It's that it always has meaning. And so in this kind of poetic verse that you'd see in a line like this, it's intended to send a message. That's the goal. The beauty is that now we can reinterpret it. So part number 1 is this. Consistency plays a role. You ever read documentation that was completely inconsistent? Either it included some parts or didn't others. It explained and expressed context in one way and not another way. And so it actually added to this conceptual load of how you're supposed to understand something. But if we were to ask somebody like a poet, how would you do it? The answer would probably be, stay consistent so that when you break the consistency, it has meaning. Okay? Now, would you identify as an artist? Do you identify, raise your hand if you personally, not if you feel obligated to, but do you personally identify as an artist? It's very rare that we do, actually. So only a handful of hands went up. Totally. Now here's another individual that is not Shakespeare at all, that I found even more fascinating, honestly, and I've only recently really started to learn about why Leonardo da Vinci was, in fact, renowned as such an artist. Now, if you don't know, I'm not going to go into a huge history, but Da Vinci's story is far more well documented, and in fact is even far more fascinating from my perspective, because what Da Vinci did is he was an incredible note taker. He drew and drew notes and took notes so much, and we have all of those notebooks. Whereas with Shakespeare, we have 0, which is part of the reason why it's so challenging to try and directly interpret Shakespeare's text, versus with Da Vinci, we have a very clear guiding light. Now, you're probably all familiar with the Mona Lisa, yes? Okay, one of the world's most famous paintings, currently hanging in the Louvre. Now, one of the things that is so fascinating about the Mona Lisa is referred to as the enigmatic smile, specifically her smile. Now, if you look at it relatively closely, it's kind of this subtle smirk. Raise your hand if you're like, and why is that important? Okay, well, let me tell you. So I was watching a documentary recently that was talking about what is it that makes the smirk so interesting, specifically in this context. And here's what it is. It's hard to illustrate. In fact, I tried to do it for this talk, but it would be impossible because of the distance you're standing from the screen. But our eyes are really fascinating. Our eyes create focus in very narrow points. That's as a predatory species, that's how it works. So as things fall into our periphery, things start to get fuzzy. But our brain works to help us out in that way. What it does is it starts to fill in the gaps. Anyone ever studied speed reading? Okay, if you're not familiar, effectively what happens in speed reading is that you are training your brain to fill in the gaps of the words just a little bit to the right and just a little bit to the left. So instead of reading an entire line, you start to read kind of narrowly down the middle of the page, and you lean into the fact that your brain is going to start to fill in the other words because our brains are pretty powerful like that. The same applies here. But this is where things get really fascinating. So when you look directly at the Mona Lisa, and specifically at her smile, it's a subtle smirk. If you were to direct your eyes off, let's say over to here, it's hard to do here because it's better when you have comparison. What happens is the brain starts to fill in the shaded parts. And in doing so, what starts to occur is that our brain starts to interpret the smirk as a more directed smile. And it literally is playing with the brain. Now, you could be thinking to yourself, well, that's nice happenstance. How did it become genius? Well, that is because Da Vinci studied the human body like no one else in their time. His notes indicated all of these things, and that was the most exciting part about it, is that the notes, the study of cadaver and the way the muscular structure, and as an aside, there's some real fallacies in some of the stuff he did draw, but by and large, the study he had of science and the body and the way muscles and tendons and all of that lined up was extremely detailed. And he did this for plant life, he did it for animal life, he did it for everything around him. And we have so many notebooks about these studies. So that when he then went into painting portraits, he used the studies there as a reference point. So we then take it into other areas of science. Few people don't realize that he was a futurist beyond, big-time futurist, ideating things like the concept which you could argue might become like a self-driving vehicle one day. It was this large circular spring that would reset itself every time, and so it would ultimately become self-driving. He envisioned the notion of a tank and flying machines and ways in which the body would evolve. Incredible study. Architecture. In fact, in the same documentary, they built the bridge that he had in one of his notes and realized that the genius of it came down to the science that he had discovered over time. Now, another one you may have seen is called the Vitruvian Man. This was at the time, one of the best representations of the actual geometry of the human body. If you look at art of the time, things tend to be very flat. Like perspectives and the geometry of the human body was always a little off. But what he did that was so magical was he took the science of the day, the things that he himself was researching and discovering, and he applied it into art. Why are we talking about this? I'm going to raise your hand again if you identify in your own eyes as an artist. Only a few of us. That's because for a couple of reasons, we often think of artists, this is the search for the term artist, as somebody who does something like this. That's artist. But what Da Vinci did, and Shakespeare also did 100 and so years later, was that they blurred the line between logic and the way that our brains interpret pattern, repetition, and consistency, and they used that as a means of expression. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's kind of what we do. Sure, we could look at the last talk, and we could say, oh, well, he just understands the API super well and all that stuff. But the best part about what he talked about in my mind was that part where he talks about the app that got built to solve a human problem, right? Yes, programming, learning, that was fantastic. And it is solving the human side of the world that I think is so fascinating. So if we look at the definition of artist, again, just random search, we have a person who creates paintings or drawings as a profession or hobby, a person who practices. It's the third line in here that I think is more important. It is a person skilled at a particular task or occupation. So you are an artist, whether you like to be or not. Just like a poet, just like Da Vinci, or just like Shakespeare, or many, many, many others, take words and they turn them into art. Now, I'm somebody that is on board with things like artificial intelligence. I think it's very powerful. I think it's fantastic. And at the same time, I feel like it's missing a soul still. And I think it's because the soul is human expression. I think it's something that, yes, we can simulate, but at the end of the day, I believe that it's deeper than that. And this is the part that I hope for you, setting aside documentation altogether, that you give yourself the opportunity to live into, because it is something that is what makes you so powerful, right? Is it gives us the opportunity to be an artist, be the poet, put things together that have deeper meaning and deeper intention. And related to that is consider that your code is more than just functional. It is not just about achieving a goal, that goal being some feature or something, but even more so is it is communicating something about the intention of the world around it. So documentation, as powerful as it is, in my opinion, better left to the code itself to express. A quote. Often people focus on the machines. They think by doing this, the machines will run more effectively. But in fact, we need to focus on humans, on how humans care about doing programming. We are the masters, they are the slaves. This is actually a quote from Matz, who is the creator of the Ruby language, and I think is very fitting to what it is that we can utilize and live into with our gear. Okay, as I wrap up, I want to leave with this, who I am. So I'm from an organization called Learn Academy. I actually started as a stage actor. I never went to school for anything but theater. I have a degree in theater. And for a period of time, I enjoyed the heck out of it until I realized that the profession is insanely hard. And I wanted to have something that was a little bit more consistent in my life. Loved the art form, hated the profession, and so I actually decided to move into more executive leadership, marketing, and eventually into programming, which is where I am at today and have been for the last 15 years. Now, today in 2023, especially through the pandemic, something interesting happened, and that was that getting a job in tech got really easy or insanely hard. And then it just got really hard. While senior positions were skyrocketing and pay was incredible, junior positions and mid-level positions, of which there were tons of people, fell completely flat. I went to a conference a year ago, and while I was there, they had two boards up. One board was for senior positions. It was the size of an entire rolling whiteboard, and they had another entire rolling whiteboard that was split into thirds. On the big whiteboard for senior positions, it was literally stuff was falling off. On the other whiteboard that was split into thirds, on the left-hand side, there were 7 items for early career positions. One said, look at the other board. I knew that when we asked the question, who's new here, and they raise up their hand, and more than half that audience raises their hand, what does it tell them when we then go say, hey, go find a job, and it's one of the hardest things they're yet to do? That's the thing that really got to me. So I decided to leave my path as a developer and go over to an organization to try and help them out. So here's why I bring this up. It's because I want to encourage all of you to think hard about how you can advocate for things like internships, apprenticeships, job shadowing, or any opportunity that can help folks find a way into tech. Because right now, more than ever, it is really hard for this generation of developers, designers, and people in technology. For most of us, we'll probably keep having a job. For most of them, they're going to beat their head against a wall, and most of them will give up. Literally, a majority will give up. And it's not for the faint at heart. Most of them are doing 50, 60 applications to get a screening interview. So it's very, very hard. So please consider that as much as you can. So next thing I want to show you very briefly is, if you would, please connect with me and scan this if you would. This is going to take you to my LinkedIn, and I'd love to connect with you about this. I talk a lot about mentorship, how to do it well, how to make it accessible. I also talk a lot about internships and the roles they can play. I talk about apprenticeships and how to get them started. So for even most of us who are just individual contributors, how can you advocate successfully that doesn't put your job on the line, that doesn't feel like it's a heavy, hard thing to do? And then the last thing I talk about is stuff like this, that I am a career transitioner. Out of curiosity, raise your hand if you might be too. Okay, a few of us, that's awesome. And this is the thing that I hope for other people that they feel support in, that it's okay to come from another place. Just because you don't have a math degree or you didn't go get a graduate degree in computer science, that this can be a world where you can find a very fruitful career. Okay? All right. With that, do I have time for one more fun thing?
Sure.
Okay. You want to do one more fun thing with me? And it requires no performance. Yes? Okay. All right. Here you go. Ready? These three, if you know how to do this, please say nothing, okay? These three symbols represent three numbers, truly, 1 through 9, okay? Take a guess, and if you've ever done it before, please help everyone else, and don't do this. What are those three numbers? Some guesses. Yes?
259.
259. Good guess.
It's the first number of 6.
First is, yes, but what are the other two numbers? The first number might be a 6. That's as far as you got? Okay. I appreciate your honesty. Thanks. Rich?
I'm seeing 70, and I don't know what the first thing.
70, and who knows? Question mark 70.
Backward L.
Backward L 70. Thank you. We're pair programming already. Go ahead. Say again? 120. Okay. I'm going to help you out. Okay. I don't want anybody to feel stupid in this room. I'm going to help you out, and I'm going to give you the key. I'm going to show you what symbol goes with what number, 1 through 9. Okay, ready? So, you got it? Here you go. We'll try it again. Okay? Raise your hand when you finally feel like you figured it out. Don't say it. Don't say it. Okay? So you know the 3. Okay, ready? All right, you got it? You ready? Ready? Okay, and go. What? It's 9 things. You people like memorize entire APIs. You can't do 9 things. It's 9 numbers. Who can't count?
APIs we use Stack Overflow.
Oh, you right. I'm sorry. I didn't include. Yeah, I didn't ask ChatGPT. I didn't reference Stack Overflow. Okay. All right. All right. Next shot. Okay. I'm going to show it to you again. And now you're thinking to yourself, I know exactly what you're going to do, asshole. I know exactly how this is going to go down. Okay. Ready? So. One more time, you know that none of this is relevant because I'm going to ask you this again, right? Here you go. Ready? Here you are. Use your tools. Okay? All right? These are them. Okay. Feel like you got it? Let me help you out. Because here's the thing. A lot of the information we get is just very functional. Okay? But let me try something with you. How about I give you just a little bit of context? So, how about now? Or let's go back to this one. What's this?
175.
Here's the thing we forget all the time. We forget all the time that without context, it is like trying one thing all the time. So here's a lesson for any of your documentation, any of the stuff you're guiding, your mentorship, any time in which you're bringing new people on. Give them context first. Help them understand your or the team's mental model. Do that first. Don't hand them this and say, well, we all get it. How about you? As somebody that's advocating a lot for junior and mid-level positions, this is one of the challenges that a lot of teams experience from the beginning. And so they feel like these people coming into the company are just not as capable. But they forget of how easy it is for us to stack all that context together. Right? We forget that part. So some of us that become more experienced, we take our history of various contexts, we stack them together into one thing, and we can use that as a frame of reference. Now, whenever you see this on the screen, you're going to know. Right? So the same thing can apply to what you do. Keep that in mind, especially as you're introducing more people into your teams, that if you can give them context first, you're going to set them up to succeed, first and foremost. You with me? Okay. It has been my pleasure. I'm going to put this up again as you go. If you haven't scanned it, please connect with me. I'd love to hear from you. All right? Thank you so much, you all.